It's the question every rider faces eventually. Do you go for the big engine or the smart one? More power, practicality. Today, the Hornet 750 and the 1000 SP give us the perfect chance to settle the debate. Not for Honda, for you. Listen, this isn't a spec sheet war. This is about real-world riding. So let's see what really matters and which bike actually makes more sense for the kind of riding you do.
The first and most obvious difference that we're not going to spend much time on is cost. The smaller bike is cheaper in every way: the initial purchase, insurance, and maintenance. If you buy a big bike, expect to spend more everywhere, especially on tires. And the tire thing brings us right into the quickest way to make sense of this, and that's to try to stop thinking in terms of engine size and start thinking in terms of force and time. It's the real difference because power is not just about top speed, it's about how quickly the bike builds speed and how quickly you and the tires deal with it. On paper, the Hornet 750 is already quick, but the 1000 compresses the timeline. The CB1000 makes it from 0 to 60 in about 3.2 seconds, while the 750 Hornet does it in about 3.4 seconds.
That sounds close, and it is, but that's because the first hit is traction and wheelie limited more than horsepower. The real separation shows up once you are already moving.
The 1000 SP takes about 7.4 seconds to get to 100 miles an hour, while the 750 is around 11.6 seconds. That's over 4 seconds of difference to the same speed, and if you want it framed as rate of acceleration as an average, the 1000 averages about 13.5 miles per hour per second, while the 750 averages about 8.6 miles per hour per second. That means the 1000 has an almost 60% higher average acceleration to 100 miles an hour.
The big bike is generating more acceleration force for longer, and it's doing it while your brain is still trying to finish the sentence you started thinking back at 60 miles an hour. Now flip it around, because physics always collects its money on the other end. If the 1000 SP builds speed faster, it also arrives at braking zones with more speed, more urgency, and more energy that has to be removed. It also brings more mass to manage.
The CB1000 sits at about 465 pounds curb weight, while the 750 Hornet sits at 422 pounds.
Yeah, the weight difference can look small on paper, but the problem isn't just mass. Momentum is mass times speed. Momentum sets how hard it is to change speed quickly. Next is kinetic energy. It's 1/2 mass times speed squared. So how much work the brakes and tires must do to slow the bike. Now, let's break that down into something a little bit more understandable.
There is roughly a 10% mass increase from the 750 to the 1000, right? But because of the added power, the 1000 SP often arrives at the same braking point 10% faster because it builds speed harder and sooner.
That is about 30% more energy to remove with the brakes and the tires. Now, if the speed difference is 20%, the math gets uglier fast. That's almost 60% more energy to shed. Now, let's connect that back to force and time. Braking is basically converting that kinetic energy into heat through the tires and the brakes, right?
Tire grip is the limiting factor, so the maximum braking force does not scale up as much as the energy does.
When the energy to shed jumps by 30 to 60%, you pay for it in one of two ways.
You brake harder and live closer to the limit, which demands precision, or you brake earlier and longer, which demands planning and time.
That's why the big bike can feel mentally overwhelming. It's not just the extra 40 pounds or the added horsepower. It's the fact that it gets to the next problem faster with more energy, and you have less time to process it. In simpler terms, small bikes stretch time, big bikes compress it. On the big bike, everything is happening faster with bigger forces, and your brain has less time to process it. On a smaller bike, you get that extra time to think, correct, and learn without the consequences arriving immediately.
You know, we get asked a lot how we capture the shots you see in this channel, and the honest answer is we kind of couldn't do it without Insta360. And it's not because of one headline feature or some spec sheet thing. It's the flexibility. You mount it, you ride. You don't have to stop every 5 minutes thinking about different camera angles. You can get multiple shots from a single mount. And when you're on a motorcycle, that freedom matters more than a lot of people realize because I get to do what I do, but still enjoy riding the motorcycle. And then there's the audio because being able to pair the camera with Cardo or the Mic Air means I can just talk while I'm riding. It's just real in the moment commentary. And yeah, replaceable lenses, which sounds boring until the day you actually need it. Because eventually something will happen. A rock, a drop, a bad dismount, and instead of replacing an entire camera or sending it off for repairs, you just swap a lens and keep going. That alone has saved us more than once. So if you're looking at getting into 360 cameras right now, the new X4 Air is honestly the sweet spot. It has all the features you actually need, and it comes in at a much more competitive price point than a lot of people expect. And it's not a compromise camera, it's a smart choice. And that's really why we use Insta360. It gets out of the way, it lets us focus on riding and telling the story instead of fighting with gear. So listen, if you're looking for a new camera for the next riding season, or maybe you just need some new accessories, or maybe the Go 3S is what you're looking for, it's so little it fits behind your visor. Go check them out. And if you use my affiliate link, yes, it does help the channel, but more importantly, you're guaranteed to always get the best price currently available without having to shop around.
Now, when it comes to handling, weight is something you feel. You feel it every second you're on the bike, not just when you're trying to get it up off the kickstand.
A heavier bike tends to feel more planted. On the highway, it tracks like it has opinions. Crosswinds bother it less. Wind blasts from trucks are barely noticed.
And on rough pavement, the chassis can feel calmer because it's not getting knocked offline quite as easily. And that stability is real, and it can make long rides feel easier.
The trade is that weight is still weight when the road tightens up. In technical corners, especially if the pace is slower, the turns stack up back to back.
A heavier bike asks more from you. It takes more effort to change direction, and it takes more effort to catch it if you enter a little awkward. And if you are tired or the surface is sketchy, that extra mass can start to feel like work.
A lighter bike is the opposite personality. On the highway, you can get pushed around more by wind and turbulence, and you'll feel the wake of other vehicles more clearly. But when the road turns tight and technical, that same lightness becomes the advantage. It flicks side to side with less effort, it responds faster to small inputs, and it asks for less strength to manage when the corners come at you rapid fire.
So weight is a comfort and stability tool in open, windy, bumpy environments, and it's a workload multiplier when the riding is tight, technical, and physical. On a smaller bike, you can often roll off the throttle into a lot of corners and still get away with it.
The bike is building speed more slowly. The load changes are smaller, and you have more time to sense what's happening and correct it.
Rolling off feels smooth, and riders start to think that that's the flowing momentum technique.
The problem is that rolling off is not a precise tool. It reduces drive, but it does not deliberately load the front tire.
And loading the front is what gives you turning authority and predictable geometry.
Trail braking isn't just about slowing down. You are doing 3 jobs at once on purpose. You are controlling speed, and you're controlling the front tire load or contact patch, and the chassis attitude or geometry as the bike begins to turn.
Trail braking isn't about being aggressive, it's about being specific. And this is where big bikes get their reputation.
When you roll off the throttle on a big bike, you often don't get enough front load soon enough. So the bike doesn't tighten its line the way you expect it. It runs wide.
And because force is higher and time is shorter, you reach the edge of the road faster than your brain can calmly solve the problem.
Riders then add lean, add risk, and they either fixate on the outside or freeze on the controls, which is the exact recipe for the classic run-wide crash.
There is real data behind that pattern. According to all the data from NTSB, the NHTSA, and the Federal Highway Administration Motorcycle Crash Causation Study, motorcycles running wide is the #1 single vehicle accident. And large displacement bikes accounted for a large share of road departure crashes in that data set.
So the takeaway is not that big bikes are automatically unsafe. The takeaway is that big bikes punish vague corner entry. Trail braking is one of the cleanest ways to buy back control because it loads the front tire early, it tightens the line sooner, and gives you a better chance of being exactly where you want to be before the corner starts taking options away.
On a smaller bike, being quick tempts you into the risky kind of speed.
You don't have the raw power to bail you out on the straight, so you start hunting for speed in the corners by slowing less, carrying more corner speed. It is fun, but it's risky. It's where the tire is working the hardest because you are asking for grip while leaned over.
A big bike flips the incentive. You can afford to be a little more patient on entry, get the bike turned, and then make up a ridiculous amount of time on exit, which is usually the lowest risk part of a corner because the bike is standing up and the tire has more grip available.
In practice, the small bike lets you choose tighter, higher corner speed lines because you don't have to make room for a huge exit acceleration.
While the big bike often rewards a more V-shaped line that emphasizes a clean straight pickup and strong acceleration on the exit. So here is what all of this means when you actually ride these things, and why the choice is less about the bike and more about the kind of rider you are on a normal Sunday. If you choose the smaller bike, think of it as a technique amplifier. Ride it like a momentum weapon.
You win by carrying corner speed, being smooth, turning in a bit later, and avoiding coasting.
You cannot buy time back with horsepower. If your line is off, if your brake release is lazy,
if your throttle timing is late, the bike gently tells on you.
The risk is that being quick on a small bike can tempt you into chasing speed in the highest risk zone, deep in the corner at high lean, where the tire is already doing the most work and you have the fewest options if something changes.
It can feel forgiving at a casual pace, and then suddenly it's not, because once you push the pace, precision starts to matter a lot.
Now, if you choose the big bike, treat it like a consequence amplifier. The habits are the same, but they have to be sharper.
Longer and lighter braking so the chassis stays calm. Precise brake release as you get to the slowest part of the corner to control geometry and contact patch.
And disciplined delay of throttle until direction is set. A Literbike rewards patience because you can build speed once you can see your exit and take away lean angle, which is usually the lowest risk part of the corner as the bike stands up and you have more grip to work with.
The risk is in patience. If you get aggressive with the throttle while the bike is still turning,
it's not dangerous because it's fast in some abstract sense.
It's dangerous because it gathers speed and adds load so rapidly that it can run wide before your brain has time to catch up. It can feel easy right up until you push a decision, and then the consequences start to show up early.
So the answer is not that one bike is better or that one is automatically safer. The real answer is, it depends. They each tempt you in different ways, and they punish different mistakes. The smaller bike rewards precision everywhere, but it dares you to carry speed where the risk is highest. The big bike rewards discipline and then pays you back with exit drive, but it demands patience because small mistakes turn into big consequences a whole lot faster.
I mean, there's a reason why everyone says you should start out on a smaller bike. You learn more faster on a small, slow bike, but the acceleration of big bikes can be so much fun.
The real answer is to just understand the differences and then pick the one that matches how you like to ride and what you want to get better at.
If you want a bike that teaches you to be sharp and fast without relying on power, the smaller bike is hard to beat. If you want a bike that rewards calm, methodical inputs and gives you massive drive when you do it right,
the big bike makes sense as long as you respect how quickly it can compress time when you get greedy. Little bikes are technique amplifiers. Big bikes are consequence amplifiers. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And thank you to our channel members for helping keep all of this content free and out from behind a paywall. Ride on and ride well.